Good evening and welcome to the news today. It's Wednesday night and you're joining us live from the Jaffa Port. Israeli security forces say they dismantled a terror cell in the West Bank overseen by the son of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. The leader of the cell, Mahmoud Zalul, is said to have been recruited online from Lebanon. I-24 News defense correspondent Shai Ben-Ari reports.
Israel's Internal Security Service revealed Wednesday that a Hezbollah-financed terror cell was dismantled in the West Bank. The cell included 5 members, all residents of Tulkarem in the northern West Bank, who were tried in a military court last month and charged. The ringleader, 33-year-old Mahmoud Zalul, was enlisted online by Jawad Nasrallah, the son of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. Jawad is better known for his jihadist-inspired poetry than for any violent activity.
In the last war, we saw to what extent words can encourage and rise the spirits. They are just words, but the pen is mightier than the sword.
Zalul received directives by email from another Hezbollah operative known only as Fadi. Fadi is a member of the group's Unit 133, which plants and directs agents in foreign countries. His orders included preparing suicide bomb attacks and collecting information on Israeli security forces. Hezbollah transferred $5,000 to the cell for the purpose of carrying out attacks, and 2 of its members, Mohammed Bazarwa and Ahmed Abu Alaz, were arrested after acquiring a firearm with the intent of using it against IDF soldiers. The Shin Bet says Hezbollah is intent on utilizing the current terror wave in Israel and the West Bank for its own interests. The militant Shiite group recently detonated explosives along Israel's border with Lebanon in an unsuccessful attack on an IDF patrol. Nobody was injured, but Hezbollah said the attack was a response to December's killing of its high-ranking operative, Samir Kuntar, in Damascus.
Yes, and joining me now in the studio are Amir Oren, defense and government analyst for Haaretz Daily. Good evening.
Evening, Ayman.
And our defense correspondent, Shai Ben-Ari. Good evening, Shai.
Evening.
Amir, it's a name we haven't heard a lot of recently, especially not since the attack or the killing of Samir Kuntar. Is this the big comeback of Hassan Nasrallah?
Well, it's a family-owned business, apparently. You had the Murnia father and son combo. Both of them have been killed by Israel over the last 7, almost 8 years. Jihad Murnia and Imad Murnia. And you had Hassan Nasrallah and his other son, Hadi, who was killed in combat, in a clash with Israeli troops in Lebanon. And now comes the other son, who, following the demise of Samir Kuntar, is apparently in charge of overseeing operations within Israel and the West Bank. However, while this is a sexy item, the more important news in this regard was released a few minutes ago by the Israeli Defense Forces regarding a high-level exercise of the entire Northern Command, a 2-week exercise conducted in a scenario that pits Israel against both Daesh and other organizations, including Hezbollah, in Lebanon as well as in Syria. This is the Israeli Northern Front. So this is a strategic or at least operational problem for Israel. The very few cells which Hezbollah has managed to recruit online have not been very successful, but obviously Hezbollah is not going to relent.
Well, one of the reasons it is a sexy item, Shai, is because Israeli media reported today that this unit was operating under the radar, quote unquote. What do we know about this unit and how much grasp does Hezbollah have in the Palestinian territories?
Right. Unit 133 is, of course, the unit of Hezbollah really devoted to, you could say, covert operations beyond the borders of Lebanon. It is active, has been active, really, for a number of years already, without making too many headlines in a number of different countries in the region, also in Egypt, in Jordan, in Israel a little bit, and in the West Bank, as well as Turkey, and even in Europe. It has been linked to the Burgas attack back in 2012. Now, this has been the case for a while already, but it's interesting to note this kind of plan to operate a terror cell in the West Bank. When you think about the similarities in strategy, when you see Hezbollah mired in the Syrian mess, it is not the only, of course, factor or group, you could say, that has entangled itself in that mess, Islamic State. And you see a similar shift in strategy with both of these groups. You see Islamic State getting itself into trouble in both Syria and Iraq, and you see them shifting towards a strategy where they operate cells cells in foreign countries, and it's interesting to see this strategy taken now by Hezbollah, even though it's not the first time.
You know, we tend to portray such units as shadowy and working undercover. Who knows, maybe an Israeli agent is running the whole unit. Only the other day, General Eisenkot, the Israeli Defense Forces Chief of Staff, pointed out in a public forum that the Israeli intelligence services have penetrated Hezbollah and that Hezbollah knows it. Now, this is part of psychological warfare, of course. Israel telling Hezbollah, we have penetrated you, start looking for our agents or our bugs or whatever. But nevertheless, Hassan Nasrallah is well aware of Israel's abilities, which doesn't mean that he will be deterred from at least recruiting agents or cells, if not invading Israel.
Well, one of the things that are apparently going in Hezbollah's way is there are reports recently that they received advanced Russian weaponry.
These are probably not accurate reports, or at least they did not receive any such hardware directly from the Russians. Now, whether the Russians have provided such weapons to the Syrians, and whether the Syrians then went ahead and given them to Hezbollah is something else. But the Russians know full well that if Israel finds out about it, it will attack those weapons and destroy them. The interesting point, if we go back for a second to the terror cell, is whether the Palestinian security services knew about it, whether they have the capability, the cyber capability or the SIGINT capability to know what's happening within the computers of their own residents.
Well, that's exactly the point I want to touch on with you, Shai. What did Israeli security forces know? Is this an Israeli security force failure, or did they know about this unit and didn't let the public know until today?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a failure because, after all, the cell was thwarted. And it's also important to note it's not exactly the first time that Hezbollah has attempted something of this nature. It is perhaps the first time in a recent period in the current terror wave. But really, in the previous decade, there was a lot of attempts, at least by Hezbollah, to sort of reignite the violence in the West Bank, especially after the drop in violence following the end of the Second Intifada. There was an attempt by Hezbollah to cooperate to a certain measure with Islamic Jihad, for example, in the West Bank, and there was attempt. Many actually attempts that were thwarted by the Israeli security forces. So this is something that Israel has experience with.
Also, the members of this cell were apparently picked up and even indicted a few weeks ago. It was only made public today. And standard operating procedure for the intelligence would be to let the other side guess, try to make contact perhaps through others who are then also picked up.
Letting the other side guess seems like a recurring theme in this story. Shai Ben Ari following it for us. Thank you very much for that tonight. Amir